And now it's time for my fantasy football guru, brought to you by Stella Exteriors. They've been providing professional roofing and siding at affordable prices since 1996. Did you know that only 2% of roofing contractors qualify as a GAF Master Elite Installer? So if you do the math, choosing Stella Exteriors takes 98% of the worry out. That's Stella Exteriors, 636 West Avenue in Ocean City, New Jersey. Give them a call at 609-399-1010. That's 609-399-1010. Now let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room my fantasy football guru and yours, Brian Hartley. What's up, Guru?
Good afternoon, guys. How we doing today?
All right, Guru, I just made some late changes, edits to my roster as I was on break. I had to drop a couple, my field goal kicker I had to drop and pick up people, move them around, but I'm still projected to lose in both of my leagues today, my games.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on this week, a lot of injuries. DeAndre Swift out, Kenny Galladay out again, Laramie Tunsil just announced out, which could affect Deshaun Watson and Duke Johnson, just a lot of things going on late this week, and it's going to be interesting again. Guys hitting the waiver wire, still got bye weeks going on, which complicates matters, but it's hard to believe we are at week 11 already of this season.
Week 11 in the NFL, it just doesn't seem right. Of course, with the weather being so nice, it doesn't feel that way, but today the Eagles are going to be up in Cleveland, and the weather is not going to cooperate. It's going to be a nasty day, but they're facing a Cleveland team that is banged up. They lost Odell Beckham Jr., and Jarvis Landry is a little banged up today.
Yeah, and they're fortunate Myles Garrett's going to be out as well. 9.5 sacks this season so far. That's good news for Carson Wentz, who's found himself sacked more than 30 times so far this season. So at least that might alleviate a little bit of pressure on him today. But it's going to be an interesting game. Like you said, weather is definitely going to play a factor.
Now, Guru, what do you think about Baker Mayfield as a fantasy pick?
It's been an up-and-down season. He will have one of those weeks where you think maybe he's turned the corner and he's going to be a fantasy stud, and then all of a sudden the next week, he puts up some pretty lousy numbers, and you're wondering, where's the consistency? And I don't think you're going to find that this year, especially with Odell Beckham Jr. out. You're going to have to look at matchups, but you have to understand it's a crapshoot. If you're going to play him, that's what you're going to get. Could be a hit or miss. If you have better options, you got to go with the better option.
Well, 15 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. He's not a turnover machine like Carson Wentz, but nevertheless not scoring too high in the fantasy world.
He's not. And now with Nick Chubb back in the lineup as well, you've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt running the ball, which are two studs. He does throw a lot of short check down passes to Kareem Hunt, which hurts some of those plays looking down the field that he used to have with Beckham Jr., who could stretch the field, find those deep in the middle zone passes. So, again, even if he does get touchdowns, they're not the big ones. They're little short ones and dump-offs mostly.
And what about Lamar Jackson from the Ravens as far as fantasy numbers go? I mean, last year he was a sensation. This year his play has dropped off.
Yeah, it really has. And the odd thing with me is, Marquise Brown last year was really a stud and somebody that was looking forward to having a big year this year, and he really hasn't been able to get him the ball. Lamar Jackson also last year, a lot of rushing touchdowns, more so last year than this year, which really boosted his fantasy numbers because he was getting a lot of rushing yards and in the end zone that way, as well as throwing a lot. They're not putting up the points they did last year. They've been in a lot more low-scoring games, whereas last year they were more explosive and high-scoring. So, he went pretty high in a lot of drafts, but really hasn't paid off dividends this year, that's for sure.
And how about Kyler Murray, the Arizona quarterback? I mean, he's kind of it's weird for him because you would think when drafted, I think people thought that they might be getting Pat Mahomes 2.0, but it really hasn't worked out that way, although he has been playing well of late.
Well, I would disagree. I mean, obviously they haven't been as successful, I think, as some people maybe thought this year. They're still in the hunt in that division. That game the other night, I expected a lot more points. I thought it was going to be a shootout. Didn't work out that way. But his fantasy numbers have been absolutely unbelievable. I mean, he's been scoring 30-plus fantasy points every week. He's hit 50 a couple weeks in some leagues. Throwing the ball. He had a lot of rushing touchdowns so far this year, a lot of yards. But this week, not as explosive. Last week, same thing, not a ton of points, but he was padded at the end of the game with that long touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins for the win. A guy in one of my other leagues, he's pretty much in first place solely because of Kyler Murray. And now that Murray's kind of trended down the last few weeks, he's lost the last few weeks, and it's hurt him. So as Kyler Murray has gone for his team, so has his team. But Murray's a stud. I think next year you're going to see, with even another year under his belt and maybe some more weapons in that offense, I think next year he's going to be an absolute stud at quarterback fantasy-wise.
All right, it's Week 11, Guru. Give us your picks for the NFL Fantasy Football Week 11.
All right, this week at quarterback, I like Ben Roethlisberger going against Jacksonville, Justin Herbert going against the lousy New York Jets, and Alex Smith had a lot of yards last week, but did not get too many touchdowns there and in the end zone going against Cincinnati. I think this week he does find the end zone a couple times. At running back, Mike Davis, who last week had a difficult matchup filling in for Christian McCaffrey, going against that stout Tampa Bay defense, but this week going against Detroit, who has given it up on the ground. Salvin Ahmad, the running back for the Miami Dolphins, going against my Denver Broncos. I think he has a nice game today. And I like Naheem Hines going against Green Bay. I think that's going to be a closer game than most people think. That Indianapolis defense has been playing well. So I look for them to run the ball a little more. But even if they get behind, Hines has been catching a lot of balls out of the backfield, and he's found his way into the end zone quite a bit this season. At wide receiver, I like Jamison Crowder going against the L.A. Chargers. T. Higgins, the rookie, playing unbelievable going against the Washington football team. And I like Jacoby Myers going against Houston. He seems to be the new favorite target of Cam Newton. And I'm going to give you a little bonus this week for guys that are in tough leagues. I'm going to give you a kicker. I like Jason Sanders this week of the Miami Dolphins in Denver. It's a nice sunny day, about 55 degrees in Denver for this time of year. That's unusual. He's going to have that nice win, and he has been getting a lot of fantasy points the last few weeks. That Miami offense, believe it or not, has really been finding their way on the other side of the 50-yard line. They may not get in the end zone all the time, but they are moving the ball, and they are starting to find their way with Tua now. So those are my picks for Week 11 of the NFL season.
Of course, Guru, you post your picks on your Twitter handle. What's your Twitter?
Yeah, it's the Guru at the Locker Room.
At Guru Locker Room is where you can see his picks. Guru, the cream usually rises to the top, and you did say that you would be moving up. And I'm looking at our league, and you went from tied to last place with me to second place. You've increased your win total. The heart attack is at 5-5 in our league. So you've made some right moves.
I told you got to hit the waiver wire. My team suffered a lot of injuries early on. Had some difficult weeks. Again, if you look at that points against, today is a big matchup in that league for me. I'm going against Team Simpson, who's in first place, but the point differential is unbelievable. I have 300 more points against than he does, and I think this week I'm finally going to steal a win this week, I think, and knock off that number one seed.
I wonder if Scott Simpson had anything to do with his fantasy picks, his son's fantasy picks.
I doubt that. You know how that father-son combination goes. I think they'll probably do the opposite of what one tells them.
All right, Guru, the Eagles and the Cleveland Browns today. Up there in Cleveland, the mistake on the lake. It's going to be a messy day. What do you see happening here today?
Yeah, I think that favors the Cleveland Browns with that running game. Again, with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb healthy. I mean, Nick Chubb had a huge game last week coming off that injury. We all know he went out at the 1-yard line, which absolutely almost killed me because I did have Nick Chubb. To watch him go out really just broke my heart fantasy-wise. I get it, but I think they're going to be able to run the ball really, really well today and control that clock. The Eagles have struggled. They're going to need Wentz to do something today. I think it's going to be a close game. I did take the Eagles last week, and that came back to bite me, so I'm not going to make that mistake this week. I'm going with Cleveland. And I'm going to go with 17-13.
17-13 in a sleeper.
It could be a sleeper for all of us on the couch watching that one today.
All right, Guru, as always, we really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Have a great day, guys. Go Birds.